So a couple things, okay? A couple things I wanted to talk about. Oddly enough, it took me a long time to realize what was going on. Part of the reason I stepped away was I wasn't enjoying video games. And the culmination of me not enjoying video games was freaking Diablo 4. Some of the things I wanted to talk about was I had this huge plan of everything I wanted to do. We were going to stream Diablo 4, and every week we were going to do 3 streams of that, and then we'll do some other games and all this other stuff. I had these grand plans for it, and then the game came out, and we played it. We beat it 2 days? I think we beat it in 2 days, and I really enjoyed the story, but there was no meaningful progression. There was no reason to keep playing the game, and that really I don't know, put a downer on things. I think because I'd been anticipating it for so long. I was a huge Diablo 2 fan. You guys know I love my action RPGs, and Diablo 2 was like the main reason for that. It kind of shaped the way or the type of games I ended up playing for a lot of my years. So looter shooters, looter, hack and slash, all those types of games. That was because of Diablo 2. Diablo 3 was a good game, but it wasn't the game I wanted. It wasn't Diablo 2. So it doesn't make it bad. It just, I was waiting for Diablo 2, another Diablo 2 2. And that's what Diablo 4 was saying it was going to be. Anyways, Diablo 4 comes out, and it was like the exact thing that is wrong with all of the video games that I don't like nowadays. So it's like they start making games with the end goal of making money in mind. Now, I'm not going to do the whole like capitalism is bad sort of thing. Like everyone's got to make money. Like there's no point making a product if you're not going to make money. But I mean, video games is an art. It's an art form. So when people go into it just to make money, they start, cutting corners or missing out on things that are super important or that gamers like really value and all that. And it makes a bad product. So Diablo 4 literally had its work cut out for it. Like they know exactly what the customers want. They know what the gamers want. They know what they need to do. They've got the perfect formula right there. They've got all the money in the world, all the resources. And they give us, for those of you that aren't Diablo fans, you get a stash tab. I think you have like 4 stash tabs or something where you keep all your inventory, keep all your items. You can only have 4. Like there was a limited number. It was a very small number. And the reason for that, I can't remember how many it was, but the reason for that number was because apparently when you log in to play Diablo 4, it loads all of the other players that are currently in your world. It loads all of their stash tabs at the same time. So not only does it load your stash tab and the equipment you're wearing currently, it loads all of the other players' stash tabs. So what does all this mean? What this means is that's very like, I'm not a game developer. I'm not a game designer, but that if I were creating Diablo 2, that's something that I would just be like, oh no, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. It doesn't benefit anyone. It's terrible. But there's people that are making these games that are, going to make millions of dollars, and they're responsible for making like these types of decisions because the company at the end of the day, their goal is like, well, how many copies can we sell? And then where do we put the microtransactions and the DLC and the day one patches, all that sort of stuff, right? So that was one thing. I was just like, what? How do they? And that wasn't the only thing, right? That was just one of the most obvious examples of why I didn't like Diablo 4. And it's not just Diablo 4. Lots of other games do this sort of just weird stuff. Like, why would you even put that in a game? Was it Halo Infinite that came out and they didn't have Slayer mode? I remember playing the first Halo and literally all I played with my friends was Slayer mode for the entire time. But to come out with a game in 2023, 2022, whenever it came out, and just be like, oh, this game mode, we just don't know how to put that in there. When it's just a few clicks of a button. It's not a lot of code that they'd have to put in. They've been doing it for years, but they're like, that's something we can add in later. That's something we can make people pay for later. Just that sort of stuff to me it's really started to piss me off, I think. And you guys know I'm not a fan of gacha games. I already don't like gacha games. Every company is trying to be a gacha game. Every company needs a battle pass. Every company is trying to be a forever game. And what I mean by that is like Diablo 4, I was going to play that game a lot. I was going to obsess over it. We were going to level up every character and get all the gear. But they've tried to make it where you have to log into the game. You have to play it a certain amount of hours, kind of like what gacha games do. They tried to limit certain things. They want you playing the game forever. They want you subscribe. They want you to have the subscription to Battle.net, and they want you to just get the battle pass. They want you playing the game forever. They don't want you to buy the product and then enjoy the game the way you want to enjoy it. And that's what most companies are doing. Not saying it's necessarily wrong, but when you go in to make your game and that's the first priority, you lose sight of all simple things like fucking stash tabs. Like, dude, give me 10 stash tabs. Give me 30. I don't care. Give me a lot, but don't tell me I can only hold 10 swords, because you got to load everyone else's swords in their stash tabs as well. Stuff like that is just that sort of oversight has really been pissing me off. The other thing I don't like, right? So beginning with the monetization in mind first. That's the first thing. Second thing I don't like is like the day one patch culture and just patches in general. It's like a double-edged sword where it's good that we have patches now for games. I mean, I'm about to play Street Fighter. I'm sure there was like some really broken things in the game the day it came out, but they can fix those. They have all the time in the world to keep updating the game, keep patching the game and fixing it. But I also remember games before patches, and there was something like, it's kind of a charm with it. Like whatever game is packaged and whatever you buy, like that's what you get. And a good example of this, again, it keeps games from being a forever game. Good example of this was Final Fantasy VI. We speak about this quite a bit, where Final Fantasy VI, one of my favorite games of all time. You play it for the story. You don't really play it for just the combat, but the combat's fun. The story's great. The characters are awesome. The graphics for its time were great. The music was awesome. All those things were so good. And all those things are what make a game good. However, it did have some less than ideal mechanics. There's a certain set of items you can get to where your character just doesn't take damage at all. You can't be hit anymore because you reach the evasion cap. So a certain amount of shields and red capes or whatever they were. You can't be hit anymore. But again, you had to dig those, like dig through that. You had to find that yourself. The other thing was Vanish and Doom. Pretty much any enemy in the game could be killed by using Vanish on them first, and then you cast Doom. Vanish would make Doom hit 100% of the time. So bosses, the weapons, any type of enemies, the dragons, you could kill them all in just those two moves. So it kind of trivialized the game. It made it super simple. But again, it's like, that's the game. Once you find those broken mechanics, you choose to use them or choose not to. But once you beat the game once, it didn't bother you because you're not going back to play it. It's not a forever game. It's not a competitive game. You're not playing it every day. So while the game is more fun to play when it's patched and you can't do those broken exploits, it's in the game and it actually doesn't make it a worse game. The game is great, and I don't think anyone lowers the scores because it has like a broken mechanic. I think the other interesting thing, you look at fighting games, for example, and part of the reason I don't have much fun labbing combos or labbing characters is like, and maybe this is just me, I feel like I'm going to put a lot of time into a character or a lot of time learning something, and then they're going to patch it. And then I've got to learn something else. They're going to patch it again. They're going to keep rebalancing things. So I do think there are some mechanics that, like, balancing is good. It's good for the lifespan of the game. I get it. But sometimes having broken mechanics and then having to meta game around it is also fun. So the other example I want to use with this is NBA 2K. I used to be an avid 2K fan, was one of my favorite games of all time. I think 2K12 was probably the last one I played. And in the game, I should have brought up an example of this, but in the game, you could, when you did a spin move, it wasn't like a real life spin move where you have to step, plant your foot, change direction, and then speed up again. When you did this spin move in the game, your character would run, they would just go, boop, they would spin really quickly, and they would actually accelerate. So you would go faster after doing the spin move. So that was a really broken mechanic in the game. So you could run out a defender, spin move, you would get by them every time. But what made it fun was it became like a rock, paper, scissors match. So if you were a defender, you knew like, hey, this guy's going to do the spin move. I can set my character, I can set my player over here and I can take a charge. So if they spin into me, it's a charge. It wasn't realistic. It was not realistic at all, but there was play, there was counterplay. There was a broken mechanic, but then there was counterplay to the broken mechanic. And so the game evolved around that mechanic, getting around defenders, so taking charges or getting, spinning around them, to where people started running and acting like they were going to spin. They would spin their control stick, and we called it backyard juking. So instead of hitting circle or the B button to do the character animation spin, they would just use their control stick to spin, because then you wouldn't get a charge. So it became this cool, like, it's almost like a fighting game in itself. It's like a cool 50-50s and mix-ups and things like that. I enjoyed that. I loved the hell out of it. So you would pick certain teams because they had really good, really quick defenders that could set up for charges quick, or you had really good ball handlers that could do the little backyard juke a little quicker. So it wasn't realistic, as in you wouldn't pick the best teams or the best teams in real life. You would pick the best teams that worked around those mechanics. And it was fun, and it had some basketball elements to it, and it was great. If I wanted it to be lifelike and I wanted it to be real basketball, I would just go play real basketball. So I think there's been something lost. So I guess it was the microtransaction kind of monetization has ruined games at the moment. Day one patches, but then there's this weird trying to make everything like too lifelike or too realistic has kind of ruined it too. So you look at the basketball games now, and all you do, you dribble towards a defender and then you let go. And it's like a cutscene. It's like the character bumps into him and does 3 or 4 dribbles and moves themselves first before you cross over, and then they do 3 or 4 more dribbles. Like it kind of plays itself, because they try to make it look more realistic when really we just want to play a fun game. So all of these, and Madden's the same, like all these other games are the same. And I started realizing the issue I had with 2K, the issue I had with Madden, the issue I had with Diablo 4, the issue I had with Smash, constantly patching characters. I was a ZSS main, and she could do Nair flip kick, which would kill characters at a certain percent by the ledge, but it was very specific. It was very hard to learn. I had to be super precise, and it was a very specific setup. They nerfed it to where it doesn't work anymore. But then they add in characters like Steve, who can just up tilt, up tilt, up tilt, up tilt. And he just takes 60% damage. They added Kazuya, one touch of death combos. So it's like, don't nerf out my character that I spent all this time learning, and then you nerf them out and you patch in other things. So I started realizing the issues I was having with games were just the state of where games are at the moment. And it's mainly AAA titles. I know there's a few games, like Starfield was the same, put the game out, we'll fix it later. Cyberpunk was the same, put the game out, we'll fix it later. I was just not loving it anymore. I loved the PlayStation Pass, whatever it's called, but then they started putting, because they don't make much money off that, because it's a really good deal. It's a great deal for the customer. You buy it, pay a subscription, you get all these cool games. They stopped putting the cool games on there and just start giving you the stuff you weren't going to play anyways. It's so annoying. I want to play all the old PlayStation games. I've got PlayStation 5. I can't play PlayStation 1 games on it. That sort of stuff. It's just baffling. You don't own the hard copy of the game anymore. It's just all these different things that I just wasn't enjoying. And I didn't realize I wasn't enjoying these things. And then I was playing Hades, and I forgot how good Hades was. My PS5 telling me to hurry up. We got 30 minutes, okay? I forgot how good Hades was. And it was made by what, like 3 people or something? 5 people? Hollow Knight. I forgot how good Hollow Knight was. Same thing. Made by a very small company. Silksong, Hades 2, hopefully coming out soon. Fingers crossed. And it made me remember, like, I love roguelike games. I love indie games. I love games that aren't forever games. And they're not trying to be forever games. I will pay for extra DLC or extra content if, it's worth it. But being able to pay like $10 to play a game like Hades, where you're going to play it for 60 hours, and then you can, like, if they did more expansion, I would pay more to be able to play more game. I was playing Halls of Torment, which was like that $5 game. I did that video of it on my YouTube. I put 30 hours into that game. It's $5. The graphics are not great, but the art style is awesome. Graphics terrible. Whereas there's other games where the graphics are great. Starfield graphics are great, but the art style and direction, it's all terrible. So what's brought me back, all this to say, what's brought me back to gaming is I thought gaming was dead. I thought it was going in the most terrible direction. Honkai Star Rail, every game was going to be Fortnite, battle passes. And I started realizing like there's still, everything comes in swings and roundabouts, that I don't think the entire industry will be this way. Everyone saw Fortnite blow up and wanted to jump on that bandwagon. That's fine. But now I think it's the tide is starting to come around where it's like, no, people want a good game. You saw Baldur's Gate 3 has been praised so well. It was a $70 game here in Australia, $80. Yeah, $70 here in Australia, I think. And it was a full game. No season pass, no battle pass, no day one DLC, no, none of that. It was a full game, which you can spend hundreds of hours in, complete game. There's companies that are going to do that. There's companies like Hades, or there's companies, who was that? I forget now. I feel terrible. But the companies that did Hades, Hollow Knight, Dead Cells, I've been playing Dead Cells, which has been great. Death Must Die. There's all these games I've been putting like tons of hours into. And it made me realize like I want to go back and play old games. So we're going to do Mega Man marathon at some point, Metroid at some point. I want to learn, Street Fighter combos just so I can learn FGC stuff. But other than that, like I started to realize there is light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think gaming is dead. I think it just went through a rough patch of everyone trying to monetize everything and a lot of companies just trying to jump on a new trend. So make the prettiest, cheapest, quickest cash grab you can. I think as consumers, we fell for it for a really long time and still are for a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think it will settle. No one's going to keep buying new Fortnite clones. They're just going to keep playing Fortnite and putting money into that. So companies are going to quit trying to make Fortnite clones and they're going to have to figure out another way. Hopefully by innovating and coming up with something new. Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about. I did have it a lot more concise. Like I said, I did have notes that I wanted to read off of so I can make sure I hit all my points. There's probably some examples and games and stuff I left out, but that's what I wanted to talk about today. And it kind of ties into why I took a little bit of a break, but also why I'm so excited to game again. Like I said, Baldur's Gate 3 has just come out and I'm going to put a ton of time into that. I've got a Steam Deck, which is allowing me to play all the indie titles and old school games, emulation and stuff like that I want to do, which has been really fun. And, Rebirth, Final Fantasy comes out in a month, a month and a half. Yeah, in a month. We've got Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. We've got Dragon's Dogma. We got so many games coming out that I'm really excited for that are big titles. So those will take up my AAA time. And then all these little games that are getting released now through Steam or whatever, all these little indie companies, I've been playing those as I'm realizing there's no shortage of cool games. So I think that's going to be my year. I think we're just going to play some of the big titles, possibly me playing those on my own. I don't really want to be spoiled by some of the larger games that are going to come out. I kind of want to play those on my own, but all these smaller titles, street fighting games and stuff. Yeah, I think we're going to be doing a lot of that sort of stuff on the channel. So anyways, I don't know what y'all's thoughts are. I've got the chat behind me, so I haven't been able to put that on the thing, but we're going to do these chats once a week, just like we used to do. And these will probably go up on my channel. So this will go up on the gaming channel because it's about gaming, but most of the other times the chats will go up on the premium channel. And I'm also going to use this as time to something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. Learn fighting game combos. I don't play fighting games. The only fighting game I've ever played is Smash, and that's not really a fighting game. Smash Ultimate and Smash 64. So I want to spend some time, but I just never spend time in training mode or any of that. So I thought what we'd do today is I'm gonna go from zero. I'm basically starting at zero, and I'm gonna go through like the combo trials with Chun-Li. I'm gonna try to learn how to play this character. One thing I need is like feedback. So if anyone knows how the inputs and all that sort of stuff works, if I'm doing it wrong, like please let me know, because I don't understand the frame links and the timings and all that sort of stuff. Cancels, what moves can be canceled and all that. So if anyone does understand that, like, please help me out. But other than that, I don't think I have anything else. What are y'all's thoughts? Are y'all feeling the same about gaming or what? Also, let me fix my audio so that the Hip Hop Fighter 6. All right, let's get into this.
Street Fighter 6.
Oh, also, cheers. Got me a little Pepsi Max. Here we go. See what I mean? They're always trying to get you. Nickel and dime you. Read the terms of service. I'm sure there's something in there about microtransactions.